Welcome back to the Jasmine Star Show. I am thrilled and honored to have an amazing human, brilliant mind, and fellow brand geek, marketing lover of building out messages and people and missions. His name is Rory Vaden. We're going to get in a little bit about how we met. But prior to us meeting, Rory has done some pretty incredible things that I had no idea about. So I meet him. I think he's pretty epic. And then I come to find out he's kind of like a big deal. New York Times bestselling author. He is a Hall of Fame speaker. I didn't even know that existed. Oh, it does. And he's here to walk us through so many of his nuggets of amazing, good things. He also, no big deal, had a viral TED Talk. We're going to talk about those things. But more than anything, Rory and I resonated on a deep personal level because we love building brands. We love building and talking about what a brand can do as a point of differentiation with a little bit of elbow grease and a lot of strategy. Today, we're going to be talking about multiplying time because I know as a business owner, you probably feel, a little bit overwhelmed. You're wearing all of the hats, trying to do all the things. And just the mere idea of talking about time makes you want to be like, I need more of it. Can you help me get there? And the answer is yes. We're going to talk about multiplying what you have so you can spend a lot more strategic time building out your brand. Welcome to the show, Rory. I'm happy you're here.
Oh, I give you big hugs. I feel that. You know this. You're like one of my favorite people ever, and you are brilliant and so fun and clever and smart. I love what you're all about. You're one of my favorite people to follow on social media. And I don't even really like social media, but I like you and I like following you.
Well, there you go. Personal brand. You don't like the platform, you like the person. I'm here for this. Now, oftentimes that I hear from people, specifically business owners, it's like, yes, I'm going to build a brand when I have time. I'll build a brand when I have money. I'll build a brand if I think that this business will actually work. Let me just get the business off the ground. Okay. So before we get to branding, let's actually talk about multiplying time in the context of if we get more time or we use our time differently, it'll expand pathways and opportunities for us to use it differently. So you had a TED Talk on how you multiply time and it has over 4.4 million views. Now you opened the conversation with this quote, "How is it that we have more tips and tricks, tools and technology, calendars and checklists than ever before, and yet we still always seem to be behind? How is it that we work longer hours, we're moving faster than we've ever moved in history, and yet we never seem to be caught up? How is it that we know more about time management today, and yet stress is at an all-time high?" Okay, so when you talk about that, everything that I have learned about time management has been wrong. And I learned a lot about it from you. What's the biggest myth about time management, how we understand time management?
Yeah, so that is it. And that's the opening line of the book too. Everything you know about time management is wrong. So there's two big things that are wrong. The first one is I actually didn't learn from any of our academic research or any of our statistical sampling or even our business practice. I learned this from a 3-year-old, and it was a Saturday morning, and I was at my former business partner's house. We had this global leaders meeting, and so we were doing it on a Saturday, and so I went over to pick him up, and he has this little baby girl, and we're trying to sneak out of the house, and she hears us leaving. And she comes sprinting out of her bedroom, and she leaps and she grabs a hold of his leg and she says, "Daddy, where are we going? It's Saturday. Where are we going?" And he says, "Oh, I'm sorry, baby. Daddy has to go to work today." And you could see her little eyes well up with tears. And she says, "No, Daddy, no work. Please, no more work, Daddy." And in that moment, I realized two things. The first is that I'm not ready to have children quite just yet. That was a few years ago. And so it's funny how God works. I now have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. And so I get it more now than ever before, even then. But here's what I really realized in that moment, that everything I had ever heard anyone talk about related to time management was all tips and tricks, tools and technology, calendars, checklists, apps. In other words, it was systems of organizing things. It was all logical. Every single time management training ever I've heard anyone talk about is all logical. And in that moment, I realized time management today isn't just logical. In fact, it's way more emotional. And the underlying emotions that we have, our feelings of guilt and fear and worry, anxiety, as well as our ambition, our desire to be successful, our desire to serve and be valuable in the world, those underlying emotions actually dictate how we end up spending our time as much as anything that's on our calendar or in our inbox or in our to-do list. Time management is emotional, and I would bet that all of you listening, none of you have ever had a training on the emotional side of time management. So the book that goes with the TED Talk is called Procrastinate on Purpose, 5 Permissions to Multiply Your Time. The word permissions in the subtitle, it is a nod to you have to give yourself permission. There are 5 emotional permissions. So that's the first key difference. You want to know the second one?
Well, absolutely, but you're kind of spitting fire. And so here I am being like, let me field this real quick. Everything we have known about time management, well intended, is logical. But everything that you've noticed is that we make emotional decisions about how we spend our time. So if we don't actually address the emotional component of time management, we're going to be spinning in a circle, and then it's like a dual edged sword. It's like I'm going to do all this time to get productive and manage my time, and then I'm going to feel overwhelmed that I'm actually not sticking to it after doing all this work. Okay.
Bingo. So, now, when you say a really interesting word right there. Okay, you said manage my time. So let's talk about this for a second, because this leads to the big second, the key distinction, and also really talks about how the way most people think about time right now is wrong. So we say things like manage my time. That is a complete misnomer. You actually cannot manage time. You cannot pause time. You cannot fast forward time. You cannot rewind time. There is no such thing as time management. There is only self-management. All you have is the opportunity to manage yourself. And so the way even that we come into this conversation is completely wrong in how we think about it. And what most of us are doing when we try to manage time is we're trying to do things faster. So in order to give you the second key difference, here's just a little quick history of time management theory. Like if you've never taken a time management class, I'm going to tell you the whole thing in 2 minutes. So early time management thought, we call it Era 1 thinking. Era 1 thinking was very one-dimensional, and it was all about efficiency. How could I do things faster? So if I have 10 items on my to-do list, theoretically, if I could get them done faster, then I would have margin to reinvest to build my personal brand and to, serve the causes I care about, and maybe have more leisure or, work out more or whatever it is. So it's not that efficiency is bad. Efficiency is good. Efficiency is a worthwhile strategy. Doing things efficiently is still a necessary pursuit. The problem is that Era 1 thinking of efficiency has a point of diminishing returns, which is very well evidenced by the fact that all of us have more tools than ever before to do things efficiently, not the least of which is the computer in our pocket that we carry everywhere. But this is a great example, right? We did a survey question, and we asked the question, like, how many of you admit to doing email while you're in the restroom? Right? More than 30% of people admit to regularly checking email and social media while they're in the restroom. What could be more efficient than that? There you are, using every spare moment you have. You're doing 2 things at once, sometimes 3, right? And this is what we do. We think that being better with time is doing things faster, but it's not, because all we're doing is sprinting on a treadmill that never changes. And no matter the challenge today is that there's more to do than you can ever get to. you could never respond to every DM, every email inbox, every tweet that comes out you, every text message, every phone call. Like it's impossible to be caught up. So that leads to era 2 thinking, which was a big advancement. And a lot of people attribute this pretty much single-handedly to Dr. Stephen Covey. So the late Dr. Covey, of course, wrote 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, sold 25 million copies, world-changing book. And Dr. Covey pretty much single-handedly ushered in a new era of time management, which we refer to as era 2 time management or 2-dimensional thinking, which is prioritizing. So we shifted from efficiency to prioritizing. So prioritizing is different. Efficiency is do things faster. Prioritizing is focus first on what matters most. So that would be to go, it's not just about doing my 10 items faster. It's about going, maybe item number 7 on the list should be done first. So I'm shuffling things. We refer to it as 2-dimensional thinking because he invented this time management matrix, or he coined it. I don't think that he invented it, but like he made it really popular, where the y-axis is importance and the x-axis is urgency, and there's these 4 quadrants. And it was like, the big insight was that we should reorder things. We should reprioritize. And now here's the thing. Prioritizing is good, Jasmine. It's really good. It's very necessary. But it also has a point of diminishing returns, which points to the fact that the world is changing. I mean, do you know what year the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People was published?
No.
You have any idea? Take a guess. Like, what year do you think it was?
I have zero clue.
1989.
Okay.
1989. Now, that still is pretty much like the dominant book on time management strategy. It was published in 1989. Think about the world as it exists today and all the things that literally didn't even exist in the year 1989. Cell phones, social media, internet, laptops. I mean, like, the world is completely different, and you cannot solve today's time management challenges using yesterday's time management thinking. And this is why so many people are frustrated, because we're taught, you need to prioritize better. You need to get your priorities in order. She's not good at prioritizing. And it's not that prioritizing is bad, but here's the limitation of prioritizing. There's nothing about prioritizing that creates more time.
Right.
Prioritizing is more like borrowing time. Right? So you go, instead of doing item number 1 first, I'm going to do item number 7. It's more like borrowing time, but it doesn't do anything to help you achieve the other items that exist on your to-do list any differently, and it doesn't create time. And so what we started to notice is that there is another evolution taking place, which we refer to now as era 3 thinking or 3-dimensional thinking. And we noticed this in multipliers. So my wife, AJ, and I, we sold a business back in 2018. We had built from scratch to 200 people. It was an 8-figure business. And we coached over 5,000 people. So our experience is doing one-on-one coaching, which we still do today. But today we do one-on-one coaching exclusively for personal brands. The business we sold, we used to coach salespeople. So like people who would just like commission-based salespeople. Correct. But we coached a lot of people, and we found that the top 1%ers, we call them multipliers, they were doing something subconsciously that most people weren't doing. They had literally figured out a way to create time. And this is another thing that it fries a chip in your brain. Because when I say, Jasmine, that I can teach you how to multiply time, I mean it literally. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not using marketing hyperbole. It's not a superlative. I'm not sensationalizing. I'm saying that it is literally possible to create more time. But for most people, they go, no, that's impossible. Your whole life, you've been told the one thing you can never get more of is time. Like time, we don't have it. It's the scarce resource. Well, it's kind of true. Are you tracking with me still?
I am so tracking with you. I mean, I feel like I'm being like, you are holding out that carrot and I am like a donkey. I'm like a burro being like, get me there.
I get it. I mean, you are a busy woman. Like you are crushing a lot of things, and you're, like momming takes it to a whole new level.
Yeah.
Like momming moms are the most amazing people on the planet.
And I did I read that a bit ago. I read that post that you wrote to AJ on Mother's Day. And it was so beautiful. It was beautifully written. It was beautifully written. Like job description, no sleep, 24 hours, no vacation days. I'm like, and then she just does it flawlessly. And you are a blessed man. Anyway, okay. Yes, but momming, yes. All the moms in the place with style and grace, the fact that we have not a hair out of place is a blessing, a miracle. But we need more time. What is this? I'm out here rapping. I'm rapping. You got me to this point, Rory. Let's go. Tell us how to multiply.
Okay. So, and by the way, so AJ is our CEO. So I function more like the CMO at Brand Builders Group, which is our company today. So she is our legit CEO, and we've always been business partners. We met as business partners, but she still is today. And she is a classic example of a multiplier. So she's like you. I mean, she's running the business, house, children. I mean, amazing. So what multipliers, okay, so here's the thing. So it is true that you cannot create more time inside of one day. We all have the same 24 hours, which is 1,440 minutes or 86,400 seconds for those of us nerds who think about this kind of stuff. Okay. There's nothing that Rory Vaden can teach you that will create more time today. But that's exactly the problem. What most of us do is we wake up and we ask ourselves, what's the most important thing I can do today? And we think about time in like a 1 day increment. How can I use, like, what should I do today? We call that the urgency calculation. But what multipliers don't ask themselves that question. They don't ask themselves the question, what is the most important thing I can do today? Multipliers ask a completely different question. They say, what are the things that I can do today that will make tomorrow different?
Heck yes.
That will make tomorrow better. We call this the significance calculation. So we coined the phrase, the significance calculation. And the reason we call it three-dimensional thinking is it sort of builds on Dr. Covey's work, that in a two-dimensional paradigm, there's urgency and importance. Well, this is adding a third calculation, which is significance, which, to use algebra, like, not to, give everyone nightmares of high school, but like the Z, this would be the Z axis. It would turn the square into a cube. Well, here's why this matters. It's causing you to think long term and yes. not about today.
Yes.
And so while there's nothing that I can do to teach you, to give you more time inside of today, there are a lot of things, five types of things, 5 buckets of things, which we can talk about. There's things you can do today that make tomorrow easier. And so that's the significance calculation, is it's thinking about tomorrow and the next day and the next day. And so in one sentence, Jasmine, just to like hit the punchline on the head, like, if you don't have 18 minutes to watch the TED Talk, which is free, by the way, and you don't want to buy the book, which is $20 or whatever it is, like, here's the punchline of the whole thing. And you want to write this down. The way you multiply time is simple. You multiply time by giving yourself the emotional permission to spend time on things today that create more time tomorrow.
Amen.
Spend time on things today that create more time tomorrow. There are certain things I can do right now, today, that will create time in the future. And I'll give you one super ubiquitous, universal example. Online bill pay. Okay. So this is a great example, because if you had 2 hours open in your calendar, which I'm sure you don't, like, when was the last time anyone was like, oh, I have 2 hours, I'm totally bored, like, what am I going to do?
Where are those people? Like, what do they do? Where's their magic? Because I don't know any of them.
No. But if I told you, I said, of all the things you've got going on today, Jasmine, I want to challenge you to spend 2 hours setting up your online bill pay. Most people would be like, that is a stupid use of time. What could be a more trivial use of time? And when we say significant, we don't mean significant like profound per se. We mean it just long term. Like, the significance calculation is the long term impact. So here's how you think through this. As you go, if you spent 2 hours today, which you probably don't have, setting up online bill pay, it's going to cost you 2 hours today. It's a sacrifice in the short term. It's an investment would be a better word for it. Because if it saves you 30 minutes every month from paying your bills, then after 2 months' time, you will have broken even on that investment. 30, 30, 30, 30 is 120 minutes or 2 hours. So after 4 months' time, you break even. But then every month thereafter, for the rest of your life, you're earning 30 minutes a month that wouldn't be there. And that is transformational. If you approach that one small example and you apply this to all different things, we have 5 primary buckets which make up the focus funnel, but all of them are just different expressions of the same concept. Spend time on things today that create more time tomorrow. It's thinking long term. Using the significance calculation. The significance calculation changes everything.
I hear this and it feels kind of amazing and great because I actually didn't know that I was doing it, and I have done it. And I actually didn't know that it was.
Yeah, because you're a multiplier. You are a multiplier. No doubt about it.
Rory, I'm sitting here and now all of a sudden it's like this little calculator going back to every event and everything. And then I think about the systematic way, albeit figuring it out on my own, on the minute I started doing something and I realized that somebody else could do it, then the factor became, let me spend some time today so that all of a sudden there is a break-even point that they are doing it entirely on their own and frees me up to do more things in my place of power. And I'm contextualizing this from a business perspective because you just contextualize it from a home perspective and or a business perspective when it came to online bill pay. Incredible. Now, I want to get into what we do with this extra time. Now, you and I are both going to volley for an intangible thing called branding. But before I do that, I don't want to say there's these 5 pieces to this funnel and then not talk about it. I actually want people to get the book. And we're not even here to pitch a book. That's actually not, your book has been out there and it's amazing and it's been out there for a while. So this is not like Rory's on a podcast book train. Here he comes to pitch his book. It's kind of no, this is the framework. We're setting the foundation to actually get to the point that we're so ardent and passionate about. It's the greatest businesses and people who are on massive missions to have a wild impact in the world and live a life on their terms and do something they really, really love is rooted in a brand. But people always say, well, when I get more time or if I have time, I can then invest in that. So I really do want to over deliver on this.
Because that's a big objection, right?
It is.
People have is 100%. I don't have the time to do social media, etc. So yeah. So one other quick thing that you're talking about, what you just said is a great example of why people should pay you and hire you and why they should pay me and hire me. Personal development is one of the greatest multipliers of time that exists. When you teach the stuff that you teach on social media, which is freaking unbelievable, the stuff you give away of how to do all of these different things, that is you tinkering with something for hours, thinking about it, learning, getting an idea, being inspired, pushing a bunch of buttons, trying to figure it out. A whole career as this celebrity photographer, pulling everything you together. And then you gift wrap it and hand it to the world and go watch this 60-second reel and I will teach you how to do transitions. And it'll quadruple your views and your exposure. Personal development is a multiplier. When you learn from people who have done it, you are condensing all the time that they spent learning it. And then when you install it, you are then basically taking advantage of all of their investment of time and you get the return on it in your own business. And so personal development is a great multiplier. Personal branding, which specifically what we do is personal brand strategy, is also a great multiplier. Now, for us, I said earlier, I don't even like social media, which is people sometimes are that's sort of weird for someone who has a business that teaches personal brand strategy. Shouldn't you love social media? Well, we think about personal branding differently at Brand Builders Group. When we think of brands, we're not so much talking about the aesthetic or the colors or the graphics. For us, the way we define personal branding is more just fundamental. We think of it as the digitization of reputation. Personal branding is just the digitization of reputation. And so even though I don't love social media, even though I don't I'm not super quick to figure out TikTok or Reels, or what I do recognize as important is reputation. And when I go, I need to learn how to make better Reels, I go, I don't know if I want to do that. But when I go, reputation matters in the world, and this just happens to be the medium in which people are doing it, it's like, I better pay attention to what Jasmine is saying here, and I better learn and start doing some of these things and applying, because it's not just a logo, it's not a color, it's not just a hack or a tactic. It is tied to to your reputation. And one of the things that we did last year, AJ actually led this. We did a national research study called Trends in Personal Branding. And we hired a PhD-led research firm, and it's weighted to the U.S. Census, but it's statistically valid, plus or minus margin of error, 3%, all this stuff. And by the way, if you want to download it, there's a free version of it just for you all. If you go to jasminestar.freebrandstudy.com, jasminestar.freebrandstudy.com, then in this study, one of the data points that we found is that 74% of Americans say they are more likely to trust somebody who has an established personal brand. 74%. Now, that number is going to trend higher in the future. The reason we know is because we took the data and we stratified it by generation, by age. And so we know that older millennials, so these are people who are ages 35 to 44 at the time of this podcast, 85% of millennials say they're more likely to trust someone with an established personal brand. So this number, at least for the next 20 to 30 years, is going to trend up. So for those of you that maybe have been following, you're listening to Jasmine, you go yeah, I like this. I think what she does is so cool. But maybe you're going, I don't have time to do it. I don't have time to learn this stuff. I don't have time, or I'm not going to spend the money to hire someone to help me with this, or I don't have time to, go through the academy, or when you think about it that way, it doesn't make sense. But when you realize this is about trust, this is about reputation, this is about how the world knows you. Reputation is the great multiplier. Reputation is another great multiplier. So your personal brand is a great multiplier. I mean, think about all the people, Jasmine, that you've met in the last few years that you've gotten access to because you have become a trusted authority in your space. It multiplies opportunity, time, money. And so I think if anyone's listening that's sort of I haven't jumped all in yet, for whatever your resistance is, maybe it'll help you to go, oh, this isn't just a platform. These aren't just tools. These aren't tactics or gimmicks. This is reputation and trust. You go, I better freaking make some time real freaking quick. One of the other data points in this study says that 58% of Americans say they will pay more money to buy the exact same service from somebody who has an established personal brand, just because they go, I can trust this person, they're established. That's almost 6 out of 10 people say I will be willing to pay more money because you are established. That is far beyond vanity and gimmicks and just likes and followers and popularity contests. That is hardcore ROI, business-driven, irrefutable metrics that multiply time. And look, if everybody who has built a meaningful personal brand, a meaningful message, all of them had to overcome the excuse as well as the literal challenge of being too busy. Everyone who's accomplished anything has had to figure out a way around not having excess time. Now, if you know how to multiply time, like the things we're talking about, it helps. And then, learning the kinds of things that you teach, things like the kind of things we help people with. Of course, you and I met through Lewis House. So Lewis was actually our very first client as a company.
I didn't know that.
He was Did you not know this story?
I know.
Okay. So here's what happened. So I met Lewis. So my first book is called Take the Stairs. It came out in 2012. I was 29 years old. The book hit #1 on Wall Street Journal, #2 on the New York Times. And so at that time, there was this like kind of rising star podcaster, Lewis Howes, and our PR firm cold pitched us. And because I was young, he thought it was cool and he brought me on the show. So he interviewed me all the way back in 2013 or something. Like it was a long time ago. So we became friends. And then I was like, dude, are you ever going to launch a book one day? And he's like, yeah, actually, I've been thinking about it. And I'm like, well, let me share with you how this works. And so we kind of like, helped him here and there. And School of Greatness came out, hits #3 on the New York Times. And, now we're kind of like buddies more than just like a podcast interview. Well, we never needed anything from Lewis. Nothing. Like we honestly lost touch. And then what happened was in 2018, very suddenly and unexpectedly, AJ and I exited our former business. It was not something we planned for. Never would have thought it would have happened. And, just kind of all of a sudden one day, things happen and you go, wow, we can't be here anymore. Like, we need to go do something else. And like to the day, Lewis calls and says, hey man, I know we haven't talked in a while. My brand has actually grown, a good bit, which was a bit of an understatement. He had grown to like 30 million total downloads. And he says, I know we haven't talked in a while, but I have all these things coming at me. And I just feel like I could use your brain. Are you available? Like, do you have any time? And it was like, turns out we're wide open. And so he comes to our house. We spend 2 days together and we take him through all these just, strategic questions and these things, which now are formal parts of our curriculum. Like we do one-on-one coaching is what we do. And Lewis was our first client and it rocked his world. And so he was like, this is incredible. And what's crazy, Jasmine, to the point of reputation being a multiplier. When we exited our company, we lost all our employees. We had no database. All of our past speaking clients from the time all the way back to when I was in high school, all of my social media accounts were gone. My entire podcast. I basically was erased from the internet because it all went with the former company as part of this exit. Well, Lewis says, I'm going to have you on the podcast and we're going to tell the world about all the things that you helped me with. And so that happened and we generated a flood of people. And then we have since worked with Lewis and his team like 6 or 7 times since. And he's gone from, it took him about 8 years, I think, to get to 30 million. And in the last few years, he's gone from 30 million to 500 million podcast downloads, which Lewis was a Rolling Stone long before us. Like we do not deserve much of the credit for what's happened, but he gives us a lot of credit publicly because of some of the things that we did, which part of which was figuring out for him. We took him through this process going, what is the one thing you could do that could multiply your time? What if we said no to everything else? And at this time, I don't think you mind me sharing. He shares this on his I've been on his show like 6 times. We talk about all this, but he had 17 revenue streams when we first started working together. And we're like, one of our biggest philosophies is if you have diluted focus, you get diluted results. All the way back. That's from the Take the Stairs book, like our original work. If you have diluted focus, you get diluted results. And we said, dude, we got to figure out what can be your one thing. Well, we figured out, there was the podcast. And we, Lewis, very much to his credit, he was so disciplined. They reduced their 17 revenue streams down to 3. He went all in on the podcast. In fact, I met you because I was helping him run his mastermind at the time. Yes. And then I was there with him the day he shut his mastermind down, which people were heartbroken over. And it was a massive financial loss for him. Like he's taken that's a 7-figure decision to shut this down so that we could create time for him to reinvest on the thing that we all thought could be the thing, which was the podcast. And at that time, we didn't know how it would work out, but that's what he did. And he has exploded.
Like, okay, I need to pause because there's like there's a lot going on. No. I need to pause for myself. I am being selfish. But I also know that there's people who are listening in and are just like, wait. You're telling me that the version of Lewis that a lot of people are familiar with went from 17 revenue streams, and for all intents and purposes, he's doing really well. And I could say this from somebody who invested in his mastermind. He's doing really well. And so then he makes, and what could be perceived as a pretty crazy decision to go from 17 to 3. Yep. Because the 3 is not just 3, it's a 3 multiplier.
Bingo.
And I feel that this is the thing I need to drill down on, because as we listen, we think more equals more, but it's not the case. It's
Amen.
Less with a strategy equals more. And so I just wanted to like contextualize that before we expanded beyond that. And as a note, because you and I, we got to meet each other and we become familiar with each other and friendly and kind and supportive. But like, it also takes a minute when you had said Lewis was a Rolling Stone before we met him. That is true. That is 100%. That yes. Definitely. But it seems like you have a way to attract Rolling Stones, because you have a client roster that is wildly impressive. And I don't want to name drop, because then it just makes it like, oh, look at my friend. He's really cool. Like, I'm cool by osmosis.
Well, I'll name drop. I don't.
Go on, son. Go on.
I don't mind. Right. So like, this current moment in time, I will say this, there are a lot of clients that we work with. We actually have 2 different fee schedules.
Hold on. I got to spill the tea. Let me spill this, Rory. Let me spill it, because it's so juicy. Like, so Rory and AJ have so much swag that they have two tiers. They have we won't use your name or likeness, and that is at an exorbitant fee. And then they have another fee of, if we can use your name and likeness, it gives us permission to talk about how amazing you are publicly.
Yeah.
So those are 2. It is worth a lot. It is worth a lot. And so he has a client roster of like basically black Amex that you can't mention them. And then he has a roster of people who are like, I actually want to openly talk about how amazing Brand Builders has been for us. So I wanted to run in front of you and be like, my friend, he's really cool. Okay, go on. Sorry.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, I'll share a couple of them right now, because they are amazing and we believe in them so much. So 2 of our clients we have about 600 clients, and so many of them are incredible. And like, the ones you haven't heard of yet, you're going to hear of. Like, I'm telling you, like, I could give you 10 right now that I go like, these people are the next Lewis Howes or Jasmine Star.
And it's like that LeBron James rookie card. It's just like, you can predict it.
Yeah, we can. I mean, NFTs are going to give us the ability to do some of that, I think.
Amen.
In a funny way. So anyways, right now, and both of these have been very public and gracious, said, about working with us. We're Ed Milet. We're helping to run Ed Milet. I mean, he's on my pod. If you go listen to him on my podcast, he again gives us a tremendous amount of credit. But Ed is about to have his first major book release, and it's going to just be massive.
It's going to smash.
It's massive. It already is, which again points to reputation. People are coming out of the woodwork to help him because they like him. They've gotten value from him. They trust him. They know him. And he's never asked for anything. And now everyone's going, yeah, man, can I send an email for you? Can I go live with you? I'll speak at your event. Like I'll hook you up with my friend, like and again, a lot of this, we kind of end up getting caught in the crossfire where we get a lot of credit. But it's really his reputation that is driving this thing. We put structure to a lot of it, but so his book launch, and then this very minute, like right now, what's hot and heavy is Lisa Bilyeu, Tom and Lisa Bilyeu. Lisa has a book. So her book's called Radical Confidence. It's coming out this week. And, of course, they're awesome and we love them. And Lisa is so much fire. And, there's not very many females who have co-founded a company that's sold for $1 billion. Like, there's not that many of them around. And she's just awesome. And so we love her. So we're working with them. And Ed, and book launches isn't the only thing we do. We do business coaching. We do one-on-one coaching exclusively for personal brands. So that's why we can't even call it business coaching, because we don't coach businesses.
Right.
We don't do branding for companies. We only work exclusively with experts like authors and speakers and stuff. and then there's lots of other people. And I will say this, Jasmine, it's so exciting to work with, these people that are like household names, because I'm fangirling. I'm fangirling. Every time I talk to Ed or Lisa or Lewis, I'm giddy. I'm like, can I have your autograph? And by the way, here's 10 things you need to change about your business because you're doing it wrong.
Let me get that autograph before I tell you what you need to change.
Yeah, no, they're not doing anything wrong. These people are doing amazing. But the reason we started Brand Builders, in a way, it really is because of Lewis. Like, Brand Builders Group would not exist if it were not for Lewis Howes. Lewis called us, came to us, said, I needed this. All we did was try to help. And then he said, I know so many people in the world that need this. This needs to be your new company. We had no plan. There was no path. We had no dream of this. Lewis was the catalyst for this entire thing. And then he sent us 1,000 leads, which, that's another good tip. If you can have Lewis Howes as your first client, it does help. But it was reputation. All we had was reputation with Lewis. We didn't have anything to bring to him. And so anyways, reputation's a multiplier.
Okay. So there's somebody listening. Okay. There's somebody listening right now, and they immediately hear your roster, or they immediately hear like what something you had said is like, we work with experts, and there are a lot of people who don't put that title on themselves. So for somebody who's listening and they wonder, am I an expert, or do I have to reach a certain threshold, or like at what point do they start considering brand builders or something similar? Like they need personal brand coaching. At what point is it like, okay, this is the time you consider it?
Well, one thing I would say is if you're curious at all about it, you should talk to us. Because that's how we do business.
Okay, VIP. Okay.
So if you go to freebrandcall.com/Jasmine Star, so freebrandcall.com/Jasmine Star, we do the first call with everybody for free, and we'll tell you. But here's the problem: the one of the biggest reasons why personal brands fail is they're completely self-centered, right? Even the question, "Am I an expert? Do I know enough?" It's completely self-centered. The way that we define expert is this, and here is like one of our biggest strategies for personal branding. See, even though we're kind of turning the corner here a little bit between time and personal branding, it's all reputation. I'll tell you this. We believe that you are most powerfully positioned to serve the person you once were. You're most powerfully positioned to serve the person you once were. So expert means, what challenge have you conquered? What obstacle have you overcome? What setback have you survived? If you have done one of those three things and you feel a calling to help someone else now do that, then we really refer to our clients as mission-driven messengers, right? So I use the term experts because people understand it, because it's like they're coaches, consultants, and then there are a lot of professional service people, realtors, doctors, lawyers, chiropractors, but it doesn't matter. Like we have a voice coach who's one of our clients, who's like a really cool success story right now. What matters is not what your credentials are. What matters is, do you have something that can help someone else? And do you feel called to share that with those people? That is what we care about. And as much as I was going to say this earlier, as much as we love the thrill and the fun of like working with the big household names, our heart is for the mission-driven messenger who nobody knows about yet. It is for the person, and most of our clients are not Lewis Howes and Ned Milet's, and like a good 10% of our clients are pretty well known, but 90% of our clients are people who are really good at what they do, but not that many people know about it. In fact, we call this the reputation formula. So if you go, where does reputation come from? So here's how we define reputation. Reputation is results times reach equals reputation. Results times reach equals reputation. Mother Teresa has huge positive results and huge worldwide reach. She has a huge reputation. Adolf Hitler had huge negative results and a worldwide reputation, so he has a huge negative reputation. A great example, too, is Michael Phelps. Do you know who Michael Phelps is, Jasmine?
Yes. World-class Olympian.
Okay. So, and what country is he from?
The United States.
Okay. And what sport?
Swimming.
That's right. Now, most of you, if I would ask you, do you know Michael Phelps? Almost everybody would say, yes, I know Michael Phelps. But if I said, Jasmine, do you know Jenny Thompson?
No.
Not a trick question. Do you know who Jenny Thompson is?
No.
All right, let me tell you about Jenny Thompson. Jenny Thompson is the winningest female gold medalist of all time. She is also from the United States. She is also a swimmer. When you compare their results at the highest level, they are almost equivalent. But her reach, for whatever reason, I don't know. Neither of them are clients, and who knows why. But her reach is not nearly the same. And a lot of the people we work with are sort of like the best kept secret. They're so good at what they do, but they're humble. And so some of them are resistant to marketing because they view it as being arrogant to tell the world that they're there. But that's horrible. Like if you had the cure for cancer and nobody knew about it, you would be disserving the world. We all see it if we look at it in that extreme. And by the way, humility is nothing about like how you do it. Humility is about who you do it for. Like you can be confident and humble at the same time. What the confidence is not the opposite of humility. Pride is the opposite of humility. So, doing it for you is what makes it arrogant. Doing it for your ego, for your self-inflated perception, for you to feel good, that's what makes it in vain. But if you're doing it in the service of another, and I'll tell you, here's the single greatest piece of personal branding advice I've ever received. This is not a Rory Vaden quote. I wish it was. This is from a guy named Larry Winget. So he's one of my early mentors. This is brilliant. He said, Rory, the goal is to find your uniqueness and exploit it in the service of others. Find your uniqueness and exploit it in the service of others. Now, he wasn't in the business of teaching people how to do that. So when we started Brand Builders Group, that's what we did. We help people find their uniqueness. We help them figure out what is the one thing they can do that is like their uncopyable difference that they were put on this earth to do. Not just a business strategy, like this is what makes my product different, but like, what is your calling? Like, what is the calling on your life? And so we sort of bottle that up and then we wrap it in more of like, more of the business strategy and marketing and book launches and yada, yada, speaking and podcasting and, digitization. But really it's about reputation and it's about service. Who are you serving? If you can serve someone, that's what it makes expert.
Rory Vaden, I want to say thank you for using your uniqueness in the service of myself and the people who are listening. I feel like what you gave, somebody once said, a good business owner sells you chocolate and gives you broccoli. So we started this conversation with a lot of chocolate. Let's multiply your time. And that's like, oh yeah, I want to do that. I want to do that. And then the real question becomes after that, because once you have multiplied your time, what are you going to do it? And how are you going to exploit your uniqueness in the service of others? I think you answered so many questions, and then you reminded people that we all are potentially somebody's best kept secret. And we all have something to serve the former selves of who we once were. And so when we think about resources and multipliers, I just want to say thank you for thinking in advance of what it would mean for somebody to set up a call, for them to explore what their uniqueness is. And I just want to say thank you for freebrandcall.com/Jasmine Star. Like, I want podcast listeners to know that Rory and I had a conversation right before we get started. And he's like, Jasmine, we just want to talk to people. We just want to see, are they willing to explore? And he says, do you think we could talk about this? 5 minutes before we press record. And I reply, of course. Why would I be a person to stop somebody from exploring their uniqueness and whether or not their business or they themselves are in a position to exploit it in the service of others. Rory, how can people outside of freebrandcall.com/Jasmine Star, how do people connect with you? How do they sniff you out?
I mean, I would just say start there. I mean, of course you could whatever I have social media. Google,
I know we know that Rory just used it as the digitation of his reputation, but what he really wants is the human to human connection. Yeah, thank you.
It is. Yeah. It is. Like we want to hear your story, and we want to know who you are. And by the way, we'll tell you if you're not ready to work with us. We'll tell you if we don't do, like, if you're trying to accomplish, like, we'll tell you, like, we're not the right fit for you. But we talk to people, and that's been our business is one-on-one working with people, like meeting them face to face and all that sort of stuff. And, the one thing I would say is that a lot of times, Jasmine, is if you feel the calling on your heart, okay, like if there is something inside of you that says, I feel like I have something to share with the world, I have this message I want to get out, then I want to encourage you. I think you should do it. Go to the URL, freebrandcall.com/Jasmine Star, request the call, because here's what we actually believe. We believe that the calling on your heart that you feel is the result of a signal that is being sent out by someone else who needs you right now. Think about this for a minute. There is somebody else out there in the world who is literally searching for questions that you could answer with the snap of your finger. They're looking to find a path that you have already walked. They are going through a challenge that you've already survived. And, that's why it's like the pain you've been through prepares you for your purpose because of how it prepares you for somebody else. And we only feel fear when we're thinking about ourselves. Fear is such a self-centered thing. Am I good enough? Am I smart enough? I don't think I have enough time. Like, think about it this way. If you were going down the street and there was a car turned over and it was on fire, would you go, I don't think I have time to stop and help this person, right? You're in the middle of nowhere. It's just you and this car, and you see it, a car out, you watch it happen, and you go you're not thinking, do I have time? You're also not thinking, how does my hair look? Is my outfit cute? You're going to help someone. You're going to serve them. There is no fear once the mission to serve is clear. There is no fear once the mission to serve is clear. There's only fear when you're thinking about yourself. There is only limitation when you're thinking about yourself. There is only I can't, I'm not enough when you're thinking about yourself. When you're thinking about the person out there who is potentially right now on their hands and knees praying for answers that you already have, that you could just gift wrap and give to them, you're not going to think about that stuff. You're just going to lean into it and be like, I'm here. Use me.
Ooh, Rory just took us to church. I appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you for speaking your truth. Thank you for geeking out with me around branding in service of others. If you would like to go deeper, freebrandcall.com/Jasmine Star. Rory, thank you 1,000 times over. I appreciate you.
Well, thank you. You inspire me, my friend. And I would hold you up as like one of the greatest examples of our time of what people should aspire to do and be and accomplish with their personal brand and their service. And
thank you.
It's a privilege to be invited here in your inner circle. So I love you, buddy. Keep kicking butt.
Love you, buddy. Thank you. Likewise. Take care. Blessings.